Hey friends, it's Judy Clock here, your independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in Middletown, Virginia, coming to you today with take two of my Turtly Awesome um, video. Can't even think today. I wanted to have this done last Thursday. I had pre-recorded the whole video, and when I went to go play it back to get it ready to upload, it was me talking into the void. For some reason, it never picked up. The camera focused on my desk. So I took the weekend to regroup. It is now Monday afternoon, and we are ready to go and try again. So we're going to work on 3 cards today. This one is just a simple little, really just a simple stamping card. We've got just a few strips of that pretty Turtly Awesome Designer Series paper on there. This one is the long way. The one I'm going to do is going to open with the side fold, just because that's with the paper that I already had cut. So that is card number 1. Card number 2, we're going to use 1 sheet of 12 by 12 Designer Series paper to make this pretty card and matching envelope. This is so fun. We did this design during Creativity Now, and it was just such a pretty design that I knew I wanted to share it with all of you. We did this with the Peaceful Garden suite, the new suite that will be available in the September to December mini, and I did post some pictures of that, but I will be working with that again a little bit later on this summer, whether it's during July or August, I'm not quite sure yet. And then our last one is a fun fold. It's just going to stand like that, and it's got just some pretty textured cardstock on the sides. We've got some white on the back so you can write a note, and it just says hooray. So it can be used really for any type of occasion. And this is just a standard 8.5 by 5.5. We've just got a couple of different score lines and cut lines that we will be doing together. So let's go ahead and get started. So for our first card here, I have just a piece of our thick basic white. It is a standard 8.5 by 5.5. I've scored it at 4.25. I have 3 strips of Designer Series paper, and I chose 3 different patterns. These are all, 3/4 of an inch by 3.5 inches. And you could put these on any way you want. We're going to add a simple sentiment, and then we're going to just embellish it with a little bit of twine, some linen thread, and some of our green hexagon gems. So let's go ahead and let me show you. So for this one, to add just a little bit more interest and texture, because it's a pretty simple card, I'm going to take and I'm going to rip the ends of my Designer Series paper, and I'm going to rip it towards me because that will kind of give us that white edge. I don't know if you can see that, but it kind of gives you a white edge right there. So I'm going to put that there. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to rip the opposite side. I'm going to rip the right side on this one. Again, pulling it towards me to give me just that little bit of white. And for our last strip, we're going to go ahead and add and rip that little left edge again. Don't worry if you rip them all on the same side. You can turn one the other way. So we can just flip them around if we have to. So it doesn't really matter. There's no right or wrong side because all we got to do is flip it. All right, let's go ahead. I want to make sure that I have these placed right. So I'm going to place the first 2. Then I'm going to stamp my sentiment, and then I'm going to place the last strip. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to use a little bit of liquid glue to go ahead and get this on. That was my little trooper down here. My trooper is my chocolate lab. He's hanging with me in the studio today while we get this video done. We're hoping that we get it done. Fingers crossed that it all works out correctly. All right, we got that strip on. I'm going to add a little bit more liquid glue. And we're going to place this strip on. Okay, now I want to stamp here for you always. And we're going to stamp this in our shaded spruce. I'm just going to ink that up and stamp it. Make sure I get my stamp going the right way. Ask me how I know that, because I have done upside down stamping. Raise your hand if you've ever done upside down stamping and not on purpose, because I have, not on purpose. But there's always a way to kind of fix it. Cover it up, flip it over, tell them that's what you intended to do because you wanted to make the card differently. There's always a way to fix it. All right, so we've got that on there. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some of these these are our green hexagons, shades of green hexagons, these are called. So we're going to go ahead and put some of these on just to bling it up. And there's different shades. There's a couple of 4 different shades. There's clear. There's, I don't know if that's lemon lime or granny apple. This is pool party. And I'm not quite sure what color that is. I'd have to go look it up again. Maybe that's the shaded spruce. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm going to pick the darker color here. That's the color I'm choosing to use. Put one there. I'm going to put a lighter one up here. And I always like to do the rule of threes just because I like, or fives. I like to do an odd number. I'll put that one right up there. Now, right in here, I want to add a double bow with some linen thread. I love linen thread. It's very versatile. Can go with really anything, and it ties beautifully. So I'm going to I'm going to cut two between 8 and 10 inches, two pieces between 8 and 10 inches. And then you'll notice as it comes off the roll, it's very curly. So I just like to kind of run my thumb and my forefinger over it just to kind of take out some of those curls and make it a little bit easier. So now I'm going to take the two and I'm going to tie them together. We're making a double bow. I'm just going to tie the two together. All right. Let's see now. This is where the part where I always kind of fuss with it a little bit. I want to make sure my loops are the right size, and I can always trim my tails, but I want to make sure my loops are the right size. Okay, this one I got to pull a little bit more. There we go. All right. Those look pretty. Why does one loop look so much bigger than the other? I don't understand it. I keep pulling the wrong one. All right, now that looks good. I'm going to trim these ends a bit. And then I am going to use a glue dot to secure that to my card front. And you'll notice I have a little piece of twine wrapped around my glue dots. That just keeps them from unraveling, because if you've ever dropped your roll of glue dots across the floor, you know what happens. So having that little piece of twine there, it allows you to pull it freely, and yet if you drop it, it's not going to unravel. That is card number one. That is as simple as it is. So really just perfect for someone who is really just starting out, or who may not have a lot of supplies, or if you've got a lot of extra scraps of designer series paper, this is a great design. This is also a design that we made at Creativity Now. And I just thought it was a great way to show you how to use up some of your scraps that you may have laying around, or if you're just a beginning stamper and you're not quite sure, excuse me, what to do. All right, so that's card number one. Let's go work on our card, our envelope, our matching envelope, and our card. So this was a solid sheet of 12 by 12. I cut one piece to 4 by 12, and this piece is cut to 6 3/4 by 9 1/4. So now we need to do some scoring. So on this piece, my 4 by 12 inch piece, I am going to score it. I'm going to pull in my scoring table. Actually, I think I can use my scoring. I am going to use my scoring table for this. All right. So for this one, I'm going to put my 12 inches across the top, and I am going to score it at 2 inches and at 7.5 inches. That gives me a middle piece that is 5.5, our standard 5.5. So it's just a little bit narrower. This is just going to be 5.5 by 4 instead of 5.5 by 4 3/4. But that little 2-inch piece is going to be our top. Okay. So we've got that. Now on our larger piece, I want to score the 6 3/4 inch side at a 1/2 inch. At a 1/2 inch, and that's 6 1/4 inches. So a 1/2 inch from each end. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and then I'm going to score it at 3 inches and at 11 1/4 inches. Okay, so that is going to be our envelope. Let's go work on our card. All right, so for the inside, I thought I cut a piece, but maybe not. Maybe that is one piece I didn't cut. Let me make sure I have some little pieces that I've already die cut to kind of save time. And I didn't get my piece for the inside. All right, so for the inside, I need a piece of basic white that is 5 1/4 by 3 1/2. I'm sorry, 5 by 3 1/2. And of course, I always have basic white cardstock cut for the inside, and it's usually right within arm's reach. And of course, because I need it right this minute, it is not here. So bear with me for 1 minute while I go get a piece of basic white cardstock. I don't know why it wasn't right there where it always is, but it wasn't. All right, I'm going to grab my paper trimmer. All right, we're back. So we're going to cut this. Well, I'm going to cut this to 5 1/2. And I'm going to cut this piece to 3 1/2 to 3 1/2 by 5. And this is going to be for the inside of our card. All right, there we go. Back on track. Now for the inside, I'm going to stamp happy birthday, or wishing you a totally awesome birthday. And we are going to stamp that again in our shaded spruce. So it says, hope your birthday is totally awesome. All right. There we go. We got that done. Let's go ahead and put this on the inside. Now remember, I said the smaller flap is going to be the top of our card. So I'm just going to come in here. Works better if you take the cover off. Doesn't work well with the cover on. And we're just going to put that piece right on the inside of our card. Okay. Now I have here a piece of soft sea foam. It is 3 by 4, and I've embossed it with the turtle shell embossing folder. And we're going to glue that right to our top flap. So I'm just going to add some glue to our top flap. And here's how I want to make sure I don't go outside of where it needs to be. I'm just going to lay that piece right there so I know I don't go too close to the edge. All right, now we're going to put that there. And we're just going to let that set for 1/2 minute. Okay. Now I've got here some scrap pieces of white, and we are going to stamp our turtle and our cake in Memento, because we're going to do a little bit of quasi watercoloring. Let me stamp our cake. There we go. Now, I like to color before I die cut. I think it's easier to do it when you have the larger piece to hold as you color. So I've got here our watercolor pencils, and I'm going to color our turtle and our cake. I'm going to color our cake. I'm going to use some Flirty Flamingo for the icing. Okay. And I'm not really worried about the pencil lines because we're going to use a blender pen to just smooth them all out. So I've got some Flirty Flamingo. I'm going to come here. I've got some pecan pie, I think. Nope, that's not it. Pecan pie is in this one. We have our assortment 1 and assortment 2, and they all have different colors in them. I want pecan pie for my plate. And then I'm going to use a little bit of Daffodil Delight for our candles, because you got to have candles on the cake that light up. So, and then I'm just going to color part of the turtle. So I'm going to, again, use our Daffodil Delight. I'm just going to color like his undershell, his belly part, in our yellow. And I'm using a light, very light touch, because I want this to be a light color. I don't want it to be very dark. So I'm just kind of coloring it lightly. And then I'm going to come in here with our blender pen. And blender pens have like a magic liquid in them that you can use, and it will just spread that watercolor pencil color around and smooth out those pencil lines. Okay, so there you have that. Now, before you color the next color, I'm going to kind of wipe it there. It's a little dry. I'm going to flip to the other side. That one seems a little dry too. Let's go to a different pen. Okay, and we're going to smooth out our Flirty Flamingo. Going to kind of clean our pen. And we're going to smooth out our pecan pie. And just a little bit on the candles. They don't need too much. All right. So when we're done, you would end up with a turtle that looked like this. And look at how cute that is. His little arm is separate. And then we're going to go cut our cake. So I thought I had a cake. Oh, I did have one cut. There we go. So we are good to go. So now we're ready to assemble the rest of our card. Now we're going to add our cake. He's going to be holding the birthday cake. I don't know why I call him a he. Our turtle is going to be holding the birthday cake. So I'm just going to put a little bit of our liquid glue there. I'm going to put that there. I'm going to add a chef's hat to his head. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the top of his head. We're going to add our chef's hat. I probably should have taken out my silicone mat for this because I don't want to get glue on here. So bear with me while I grab a silicone mat. Okay. And then I'm going to add in the apron, and I'm going to make sure that I put that hand over the apron. Got a little apron. You're going to lift that arm up and tuck the apron just under the arm. I got to get it straight though. That's why you use the liquid glue. Okay. Now we are good to go. Our little turtle is good. We're going to add him. I used our modern oval punch and I punched him out. And we're going to add him to that piece of pool party. Okay, there we go. Put a little bit by his head. A bit of glue there. A little bit of glue there. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to add, this apron looks a little crooked. All right, I think it's good now. That's good. I'm going to add some dimensionals. I was hoping I had some minis, but I think I'm out of the minis. Okay, I'm going to add some dimensionals to the back of my oval. I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say. Okay, now before I add him to my card front, I want to add a ribbon, a piece of ribbon. So we have here, this is part of the suite. It comes in part of the Turtly Awesome suite. It is soft sea foam on one side and shaded spruce on the other. And we want about 26 inches. So if you have your glass mat, there is a ruler on the bottom of it. And that was 13 inches. We're just going to cut this. This is not my good scissor. Where's my good scissor? Growing up, my mother had her fabric scissors, and heaven forbid you used her fabric scissors to cut paper. Oh my goodness. That was one of the unforgivable sins. Now I want to lay my ribbon here. Okay. And now I know where I want to add my focal point. So he is going to be added. The turtle is going to be, excuse me, is going to be added right there. So that should allow the ribbon to move freely. But now before we do anything, I want to make sure I'm going to add a little tiny bit of Stampin' Seal to the back of my card to just kind of help hold that ribbon in place. Doesn't have to be a big piece, just enough to kind of just tack the ribbon on. All right, let's close this up. Let's tie a bow. Now, I was taught that if you want your tails to face, whatever direction you want your tails to face, you flip the paper around and tie it so the bow is facing you. So I want my tails to face the bottom of my card. So I'm flipping it so the top of my card is facing me as I tie this. And we'll see if it works out. It usually does. Okay, this is a little bit twisted, but that is a nice bow. Let's trim the ends. I like to cut them on a diagonal. It just, I think, makes it look a little fancy. And who doesn't like fancy? All right, so that is our card. How fun is that? Now let's work on our envelope. So remember, we did our scoring. We did a 1/2 inch on each of our short edges. So at the 6 3/4, we scored it at a 1/2 inch and at 6 1/4 inches. Okay, and then we scored it at 3 inches and 7. Right, we did 3 inches and 7 1/4 inches. So I'm just going to fold my score lines. Now, I want to get rid of the 1/2 inch piece on each end. Okay, so I'm going to trim this from the 1/2 inch line down to that first score line. And we're going to get rid of that. Okay, and we're going to do the same. We're going to score it on that second score line and cut off that 1/2 inch. Right. I had to stop and think, and I'm like, I'm doing this correctly. Nothing like having a moment of panic as you're making the design, but no, this is correct. All right. Now, this smaller flap is actually going to be the top of our envelope. So if you want to like round the corners, if you have a corner punch, you can. If not, you can just sort of use your paper snips. Just kind of round the corners just a tad. Okay, and if you want, I'm going to actually trim this a little bit on an angle. Just kind of, I'm just going to trim this one too. Just a little bit of a snip to kind of angle that just a little bit so you don't get too bulky down in the corners. Now we're going to fold these in. Okay, and then we're going to now before we glue it, let's make sure that our card fits. It's going to be a tight fit with the bow, but look at that. It will slide right into our envelope. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to add some glue to my 2 outer edges here. And I'm going to fold it up. Okay. Just remember, a thin line of glue works wonders. You don't need to go glue happy. Okay. All right, I'm just going to hold that in place for a second. Now, if you're going to mail it in the, put it in the US postage, you want to add a piece of tear and tape across the top. And that when you're ready to seal your envelope, you just lift off the covering from that tear and tape. Right? Even if you're going to hand it to somebody, if you want to seal that envelope, just add that tear and tape across the top. I'm going to get all of our scraps out of the way. All right. And that is card and envelope number 2. How fun is that? I like that one. All right, our last card is this very fancy fun fold. So for this, I am going to need my paper trimmer because we need to do some score lines and some cut lines. So on the first, excuse me, the first score line, I want to score it at 2 1/8 on each side. I'm going to put this here. I'm going to score it. Make sure you use your scoring blade and not your cutting blade. Ask me how I learned that one. I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to score it at 2 1/8 on the other side. And I could open up my arm and just score it. That would be at 6 3/8, but for the ease of this, I'm just going to keep it closed. Okay, now I'm going to cut between those two score lines. I am going to cut it at 1 1/4 inches. Okay, I'm going to bring my blade here. I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to cut from like there down to 6 3/8 and up to 2 1/8. Okay, let's make sure. A little bit more. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to flip it, and I am going to cut it from, again, at 1 1/4 inches from down to 6 3/8 and up to 2 1/8. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, all right, that looks good. Now I want to score this top section at 4 1/4. So from the top to that cut line, we're going to score it at 4 1/4. I'm going to flip it around and do the same thing on the other side at 4 1/4 between the edge and that cut line. Okay, now I've got this. Now I need to score this middle piece here. You need to do some score lines there. So I want to score this at 3, I can't even see my numbers, 3 3/16, which I know is hard. 1, 3. So that is like 1 before 3 1/4. So, and we're going to score that between our cut lines. Okay, and then we're going to score it at 5 5/16. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So like 1 tick mark after the 5 1/4. Okay, now praying that we did this correctly. We should have all of our score lines. So I'm going to fold these two in. This one's got to come up this way too. Okay. So I'm just going to use my bone folder to score it on each of the score lines. Okay. Okay. That is our fold and our cut. Now let's go ahead and decorate it. So for the outside, I've got some Granny Apple Green that is cut to 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. And all of these measurements will be in the corresponding blog post, which will be up shortly after this video is posted. So just bear with me. It will be all there, so you don't have to worry about going back and stopping and getting all the measurements. They will all be in the blog post for you. Okay, so we're going to add that there. I'm going to add this on the other side. Do you like this color combo? I just love it. I think it works so well together. I think it's a pretty combo, but let me know what you think. Let me know if you like this. All right. Now, I also have, for the back side, I have 2 pieces of basic white that are the same dimensions, 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. This way you can write a message to the person that you're giving the card to. It's a little bit of some white panels there so that you can personalize it with whatever message. If you're doing a happy birthday, you can even, if you're doing a happy birthday, you can even stamp happy birthday. Just break it up, stamp happy on one side, birthday on the other. Or just, whatever message you want to say. Okay, there is those. Now let's finish up the front. Now, I have here a couple of pieces of DSP. I have 2 pieces at 3/4 of an inch by 2 3/4 of an inch. And those are going to go right there on those side panels. Okay, let's go ahead and put that there. And this is all part of that Turtly Awesome Designer Series paper. So we've got 2 pieces, 3/4 by 2 3/4. And then I've got a piece here that's 1 inch by, looks like 1 7/8. So we've got 4 of these, and these are going to go on these 4 panels, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. Okay. There we go. All right. And then we've got a piece of our basic white that is 3 inches. I'm sorry, it is 1 7/8 of an inch by 2 3/4 of an inch. So that's going to go right here on the middle panel. It doesn't have to be basic white. You could use whatever color you want. I did basic white just for the ease of planning. Then I cut 3. These are actually, believe it or not, the part of the banjo. But I thought, you know what? They could also be balloons. So we've got some garden green. I'm going to add a little balloon there. And we're going to add, we got some petal pink. Going to add another balloon there. And then we've got some balmy blue. I can pick it up, and we've got our 3rd balloon. Okay. All right, we're going to stamp Hooray in our Flirty Flamingo. All right, I'm just going to stamp Hooray. And then I am going to attempt to fussy cut this, which y'all know that fussy cutting is really not my thing. But every once in a while, I give it the old college try. So here we go. Let's go. This is pretty easy because it's mostly straight lines except for the Y and the H. But I figure I can handle that. I just don't do it well. I think it looks like a child did it. No pun, no disrespect to the children. But I just am not good at fussy cutting. But I keep trying, right? I mean, that's the whole point, is you got to keep trying. There we go. Let's see. The whole trick is to move the paper and not the scissors. At least that's what I've been told. So we'll see. All right. Now this we're going to pop up on dimensionals right there. And because it's kind of narrow, I'm actually going to use some edge pieces. I think I have some, I thought I had some used. There we go. Cut these 2 little edge pieces off right here and use these because these are kind of narrow, and my little Hooray is kind of narrow, and it's flipping all around. Okay. Let's go add our Hooray. Let's get this out of the way. Get that out of the way. Trying to get everything out of the way. And we're going to add our Hooray down there. But we're not done quite yet. We're going to add another little, got to tie our balloons together. So we're going to add another little linen bow. And this is, I'm doing a single, so I'm just tying it right from the spool so I can just cut the amount that I want. It's not like I don't have tons of linen thread, because I do. But, you know, why use more than you have to, right? All right, and then I'm going to take another glue dot, and we are just going to put our glue dot, I'm going to kind of just roll it just a bit to make it a little bit smaller. I'm just going to put that right on our balloons. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and add some more gems, you could certainly add some more gems, but that is our final card. So all ready to go ahead and give to someone special. So I hope that you like these. I'm sorry it took me so long to just really sort of get back down here and get this done. It was just, you know, after the whole thing just fell apart on last Thursday, I needed a break. Like, I need a break. I can't do this anymore. I just got to take some time to regroup and come back together. But I hope you like it. I am featuring this in my June workshop. So for those of you that are coming, I am excited to work with you and to share this set with you. I hope you like some of the cards. We're not going to be doing all of these cards in the workshop, but we will be doing some of them. And I've got some other great designs. That's it for me. Thanks so much for your patience and for letting me get this done kind of a little bit late, but I appreciate it. I'll see you back here this Thursday at 7:30 with another tutorial. Bye for now.